My husband's brother called me selfish, saying, "You chose strangers over family." Then they tried to ruin my life and I knew I had to fight back. This happened earlier this year, and let me tell you, my in-laws? They're no longer welcome in my house. First, a little background. My husband and I, both 24, have been married for 2 years. I'm a social worker, and he's an electrician. Together, we own a cozy little 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. We've got our bedroom, a home office, and a guest bedroom, though calling it a guest bedroom doesn't fully do it justice. That room is my sanctuary for the children I bring home from work. You see, the foster care system in my state is absolutely broken. There are never enough foster homes to go around, and kids end up stuck in hospitals, psych facilities, or sleeping on the floors of CPS offices in sleeping bags. It's gut-wrenching. Sometimes, when I can't find placements for siblings who need to stay together, I bring them home with me. My husband and I are child-free by choice, but he's amazing and fully supports my work. Our guest room is set up for these emergency situations. It has 2 twin beds, each with a pull-out bed underneath. It's perfect. I can give up to 4 children their own beds in a safe, welcoming space. I've poured my heart into making it just right for them. Then came my in-laws. Earlier this year, my husband's brother and his wife fell on hard times. They lost their jobs, couldn't renew their lease, and were scrambling to figure out their next steps. They had nowhere to go, so we did the decent thing and let them stay with us for 2 months. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I understood the situation. What I didn't expect was how entitled they'd act. From the moment they saw the guest room, it was nothing but complaints. They were furious about the 2 twin beds. They wanted to push them together to make a bigger bed, but the frames don't allow for that. Then they demanded I remove the beds entirely so they could put a queen-sized air mattress in the room. But there was no space for a queen mattress without dismantling the entire setup, and even if there were, where was I supposed to put the twin beds? We don't have a garage or storage space. I told them no. I had worked hard to make that room a safe haven for kids in need, and I wasn't going to tear it apart for a temporary situation. And honestly, I didn't want them getting too comfortable. This wasn't a long-term arrangement, and I didn't want to encourage them to overstay their welcome. I'd rather house children who've been through hell than cater to my ungrateful in-laws. My husband stood by me. He told them, "If you don't like it, get a hotel. Otherwise, stop complaining." And he didn't just say it, he meant it. He even told them that if they kept whining, they'd have to leave. That's when they really started to lose it, accusing us of making them sleep in kid beds and acting like we were the worst people alive. Their outrage didn't stop there. Once they left, they started telling anyone who would listen how awful we were. My husband, bless him, wasn't having it. He's been shutting them down left and right, telling his family, "If you don't have anything nice to say, don't talk to us at all." It's been months now, and I still don't regret my decision. I know I did the right thing for the kids who rely on that space. But sometimes I wonder, am I the asshole? My in-laws certainly think so, and they've got half the family on their side. But I can't help but think, maybe they're just upset because they couldn't manipulate me into giving them exactly what they wanted. Update 1. After my in-laws left, I assumed the situation was over, but apparently, that was just the beginning. Within days, word got back to me that my sister-in-law and brother-in-law had started spinning their version of events to anyone willing to listen. According to them, I'm the villain who values random kids over family and forced them to sleep in what they're calling child-sized torture beds. It was ridiculous, but it didn't take long for the gossip to start spreading through my husband's side of the family like wildfire. They've painted the picture of 2 poor, hardworking people who were down on their luck, only to be mistreated by their heartless relatives. Never mind the fact that we gave them a free place to stay, utilities, food, and even a shred of privacy while they got back on their feet. No, the twin beds are apparently the crime of the century. At first, I laughed it off. Surely, anyone who knows us would see through their nonsense. But then the phone calls started. My mother-in-law was the first to call my husband, demanding to know why we didn't just put the twin beds in storage and give his brother and wife a proper place to sleep. When my husband explained that the twin beds weren't just furniture, they were an intentional setup for the kids I occasionally foster, she completely dismissed it. She claimed that family should come first, and she actually said, "You'll always have kids to help, but your brother only has one family." It was infuriating. My husband told her flat out that we had done more than enough by letting them stay at all, and that if the twin beds were such a big issue, they could have gone to a hotel. That conversation didn't go over well. She accused him of being heartless, then pivoted to blaming me, saying I must have forced him to take my side. It was clear where this was heading. Soon, the calls multiplied. My husband's aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone seemed to have an opinion. Some were genuinely curious about what had happened, but others were clearly just calling to stir the pot. One of his cousins even said, "If you don't want to take care of your family, why would you marry someone who works with foster kids? Doesn't that seem hypocritical?" I was floored. The audacity of some people was unbelievable. Letting them stay wasn't enough. Feeding them wasn't enough. They wanted us to uproot the entire purpose of our guest room and cater to their every demand, and if we didn't, we were villains. It wasn't like they were sleeping on a cement floor. The twin beds were perfectly functional, clean, and comfortable, but no, apparently, I had committed a sin against hospitality. The worst part, though, was when my sister-in-law took things to social media. She posted a long, self-pitying rant about how she and her husband had been abandoned by family in their time of need and how they were forced to sleep in tiny, uncomfortable beds that weren't even meant for adults. She conveniently left out the part where they lost their jobs because of their own financial mismanagement or the fact that we housed them for 2 months completely free of charge. Of course, she also didn't mention that we're using that room for foster kids, because why let the truth get in the way of a good sob story? The comments on her post were infuriating. People who didn't know us at all were chiming in with sympathy, calling us selfish and heartless. I wanted to reply so badly, to set the record straight, but my husband convinced me to let it go. "Anyone who matters knows the truth," he said, and he was right. Still, it was hard to sit back and watch strangers paint us as monsters for no reason. My husband has been a rock through all of this. He's told anyone who dares to criticize us to either drop it or stop contacting us entirely. I'm proud of how firm he's been, especially with his parents, who clearly think they can guilt-trip him into submission. His mom even tried to convince him to apologize, saying it would heal the family. He told her, "If anyone owes an apology, it's them." They were guests in our home, and instead of being grateful, they acted like entitled children. That shut her up for a while. I've been focusing on the bigger picture, which is the work I do with the kids. Every time I walk into that guest room, I'm reminded why I set it up the way I did. It's not just a room, it's a place where kids who've been through unthinkable trauma can feel safe, even if it's just for one night. That's worth more to me than catering to my in-laws' egos. I've also gotten messages of support from my own family and friends, who've reassured me that I'm not in the wrong here. My mom even said, "If they're mad, it's because you didn't let them take advantage of you. Let them stay mad." It's been a good reminder that not everyone is buying into their narrative. For now, the drama has died down slightly, but I know it's not over. My in-laws seem determined to paint themselves as victims, and I'm sure the next holiday gathering will be full of awkward conversations and backhanded comments. I'm ready for it, though. If they want to keep this going, they'll find I'm not as easy to manipulate as they think. At the end of the day, I'm not going to apologize for prioritizing kids who have no one else. If that makes me the bad guy in their eyes, so be it. I know I'm doing the right thing, and I refuse to let their entitlement make me doubt that. Update 2. After the dust settled from the initial drama, I thought my in-laws might cool off and move on. Clearly, I gave them too much credit. Instead of letting it go, they've somehow managed to make the situation even worse. It started with another round of phone calls. This time, my mother-in-law took the lead. She decided it was her mission to fix the rift in the family, but her idea of fixing things was insisting that my husband and I should apologize. Not just to his brother and sister-in-law, but to her too, for causing unnecessary conflict. She claimed that if we just admitted we were wrong, the family could move past it. My husband shut that down immediately. He told her, "I'm not apologizing for giving them a free place to stay and feeding them for 2 months. If they didn't like the setup, they could have left any time." That didn't sit well with her. She started crying, claiming she didn't raise her sons to treat each other this way. This was the point where my patience started wearing thin. I had mostly stayed quiet in these conversations, letting my husband handle things, but when I heard her trying to guilt-trip him like that, I jumped in. I calmly explained, again, that the guest room is specifically set up for foster kids and that I'm not going to rearrange it for anyone, even family. I reminded her that the room wasn't designed to be comfortable for adults. It was created to give traumatized children a safe, welcoming space. She dismissed everything I said. Of course. You've got your priorities all wrong, she told me. Family should always come first. You're married now, and it's time to start acting like part of this family. That hit a nerve. I've always believed that family isn't just about blood. It's about how you treat people. And frankly, her son and daughter-in-law weren't treating us like family when they were complaining and demanding we change everything to accommodate them. I told her as much, which only made her more upset. She pulled the classic "I'm so disappointed in you" card, which might have worked if I hadn't heard it so many times before. At this point, I could practically write a script for these conversations. Things took a turn for the worse when my sister-in-law decided to host a family meeting. I didn't even know people still did those outside of TV dramas, but apparently, she thought it was a great idea. She invited my husband and me, along with his parents, a few aunts, and a couple of cousins. The purpose? To resolve the issue and rebuild trust. We weren't planning to go, but my husband's grandmother called and begged us to attend. She said she just wanted everyone to get along again and that maybe a face-to-face conversation would help clear the air. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The meeting was a disaster from the start. My sister-in-law kicked things off by dramatically recounting how humiliating it was to sleep in those awful little beds and how it made her feel like we didn't care about her or her husband. She even brought printouts of pictures of the guest room, taken when they were staying with us, to pass around the table, as if she was presenting evidence in court. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it simple. I explained that the room wasn't designed for adults, that we had gone above and beyond by letting them stay with us for 2 months, and that I wasn't going to apologize for prioritizing foster kids. I thought I was being reasonable, but apparently, that's not what they wanted to hear. The meeting devolved into a shouting match, with everyone talking over each other. My sister-in-law accused me of being selfish. My mother-in-law chimed in, saying I was too attached to my job and needed to learn how to balance work and family. One of my husband's cousins suggested that we were using the foster kids as an excuse to avoid being accommodating. My husband, to his credit, stayed calm through most of it, but when someone suggested that I only foster kids for attention, he lost it. He stood up and said, "We're done here. If you can't respect what we do and the boundaries we set, then we don't need to be part of this conversation or this family dynamic." Then he grabbed my hand, and we walked out. That was a turning point for both of us. We realized that no amount of explaining or defending ourselves was going to change their minds. They had already decided we were the bad guys, and nothing we said or did would be good enough. Since then, we've gone low contact with most of my husband's family. His parents still try to call occasionally, but it's usually just to push the same narrative about family first and how we're being unreasonable. My husband has been firm with them, telling them that until they can respect our choices, there's nothing to talk about. As frustrating as this whole ordeal has been, it's also been eye-opening. It's made me appreciate the people in my life who genuinely support us, like my own family and close friends. It's also strengthened my relationship with my husband. Seeing how he stood by me through all of this has reminded me why I married him in the first place. I've also doubled down on my commitment to the foster kids I work with. Every time I walk into that guest room, I'm reminded of why I set it up the way I did. It's not just a room with twin beds. It's a space where kids who've been through unimaginable trauma can feel safe, even if it's just for one night. That's worth more to me than the approval of people who can't see past their own entitlement. I wish things had turned out differently with my in-laws, but at the same time, I don't regret standing my ground. If they're upset because I wouldn't let them take advantage of me, that's their problem, not mine. I'm done bending over backward to accommodate people who don't appreciate it. For now, I'm focusing on the things that matter: my work, my marriage, and the kids who need me. If my in-laws ever decide to come around and respect our boundaries, great. If not, I'm perfectly fine keeping my distance. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away from toxic people, even if they're family. Update 3. I didn't think things could get more ridiculous after the family meeting, but my in-laws managed to surprise me. Over the past few months, the drama has simmered down somewhat, but it didn't go away entirely. Some of it was predictable, some of it was laughable, and some of it was just plain sad. Here's how it all played out. After the meeting, my husband and I went fully no contact with his brother and sister-in-law. We decided that our mental health was worth more than trying to keep a relationship with people who clearly didn't respect us. For a while, things were quiet, but then the phone calls started again. This time, it was my father-in-law trying to mediate between us and the rest of the family. He said the same old things about how we should apologize and how family unity was more important than who was right or wrong. My husband wasn't having it. He told his dad, "We're not apologizing for having boundaries. If you can't respect them, then there's nothing to talk about." That was the end of that conversation, or so we thought. A couple of weeks later, my husband got a text from his mom saying, "I just want to let you know that we've been forced to take sides, and we've decided to support your brother. We hope you understand." We both laughed at that because, honestly, what sides? This wasn't a war or a competition. We just wanted them to respect our choices and not make everything about them. It didn't stop there, though. My mother-in-law started posting vague, passive-aggressive Facebook updates about how family should always stick together and how some people forget where they came from. My husband and I don't even use Facebook much, but a few friends sent us screenshots. It was petty and unnecessary, but at this point, we weren't surprised. Things took a turn when my brother-in-law and sister-in-law decided to retaliate in the weirdest way possible by trying to turn my foster kids into a talking point. They started spreading rumors that I was using the foster system to make myself look good and that I was only doing it for attention. I was furious when I found out. This wasn't just an attack on me, it was an attack on the kids I care for. Thankfully, these rumors didn't go far. The people in my life who matter, my friends, my co-workers, my family, know the truth. They've seen the work I put into creating a safe space for these kids and how much I care about them. Still, it hurt that anyone would stoop that low just to try to make me look bad. The breaking point came a couple of months ago when my in-laws sent us an invitation to a family reunion. The catch? It was being hosted at my brother-in-law's new place, and the invitation came with a list of house rules. The rules included things like no bringing random foster kids, seriously, and everyone must be willing to discuss unresolved issues. We didn't even consider going. My husband responded with a single text, "We're not interested. Stop trying to manipulate us into situations that only benefit you." After that, we blocked his brother, sister-in-law, and, reluctantly, his parents. It was a hard decision, especially for my husband, but it became clear that they weren't going to stop pushing their agenda unless we completely removed ourselves from the situation. Since then, life has been peaceful. For the first time in months, we don't have to deal with constant drama, phone calls, or ridiculous demands. It has been refreshing to focus on our own lives and the things that truly matter. My husband and I have poured our energy into improving our home, our relationship, and our work. The guest room is still set up for foster kids, and I've had the privilege of hosting several children since the whole fiasco started. Each time, I'm reminded of why I do this. It's not about my in-laws or their opinions. It's about giving kids a place to feel safe, even if it's just for one night. We've also strengthened our relationship in ways I didn't expect. Going through all of this has made me appreciate my husband even more. He's stood by me through everything, defending me when I felt attacked and supporting me when I felt overwhelmed. It hasn't been easy, but we've come out stronger on the other side. As for his family, I've come to terms with the fact that some relationships just aren't meant to be. It's sad, but it's also freeing. I don't have to tiptoe around their feelings or constantly defend my choices. I can just live my life, knowing that I'm doing what's right for me, my husband, and the kids who need me. The funniest part? After all this, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law moved out of state. They didn't tell us directly, but we heard through the grapevine that they've settled somewhere far away and are trying to start fresh. Good for them, I guess. Maybe the distance will give everyone a chance to cool off. I've learned a lot from this experience, but the biggest lesson is this: boundaries are essential, even with family. You can love people and still say no when they're being unreasonable. You can care about their feelings without sacrificing your own. And sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away. To anyone else dealing with family drama, I hope this serves as a reminder that it's okay to prioritize your own well-being. It's okay to say no, to stand your ground, and to cut ties if that's what you need to do. Life is too short to spend it trying to please people who will never be satisfied. As for me, I'm done looking back. My focus is on the future, on my marriage, my work, and the kids who remind me every day why this is all worth it. My in-laws can think what they want. At the end of the day, I know I've made the right choices for myself and the people I care about. Here's to leaving the drama behind and moving forward.